I'm a little irritated because of the iPad issues, so hopefully I won't be doubly angry at Trey Anastasio for no reason. I mean, usually I'm mad at him just because of Phish. I can't stand how Phish I can't properly explain what's wrong with Phish. They're not bad musicians. It's just they choose to make music that I don't like, and it just doesn't. There's some sort of it's the jam band factor, and I haven't like boiled it down yet. But there's something about jam bands. There's some aesthetic choice that just does not work for me, and I do not want any of it. And it doesn't matter how good they are. If they sound like a jam band, I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. So anyway,
I just like him as a guitar player so much.
It's a two-parter, but they're short. So because I know he has way too many pedals.
And I sold him a Blues Junior once.
Is it a Blues Junior the Third?
A Blues Junior the Third. I sold him a Blues Junior the Third once.
Nice.
And he's my height. He and I look eye to eye.
The Languedoc guitar, of which I think this is the, I want to say the fourth model. The first one was made in the 80s when we were still playing at Nectar's. And the main things are, it's a long scale length, which is the length from the nut to the bridge is the same as a Strat.
Long as opposed to
a lot of hollow body guitars have a short scale length, and so they sound soft.
Is he just talking Fender scale length or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because apparently he doesn't know
it's long.
But we have other scale lengths now, and that's not really long. It's just the longer of the two.
Longer than a Gibson.
Classic scale lengths.
Yeah.
He's like, it's a long scale. I'm like, whoa, like a baritone? No, just
no.
He
threw
a
me. It was
normal.
like, yeah.
And I wanted it to have the bite of a Strat and then the kind of
wait, hold on, back
of
up.
a hollow
What was
body.
that
was a
thing
combo.
on his?
So the body is completely hollow and braced.
It's a snow leopard.
This piece of koa is really, really special, and you can see. And he held on to it for years. I don't know how many years. You'd have to ask him, but he said it was in the corner of his shop. He shops in his garage. You know, and it's just, it plays like a dream. I love this guitar.
And there you go.
And he put a little ocelot on there after the song, I guess.
It's an ocelot.
It's an ocelot.
Look at that inlay. He's got the sunset.
Look at the shape of the headstock.
It's pretty magical.
Yeah, it's ugly.
First one had the puppy
Don't like
Marmar on it. Marley was a puppy. So it's the one on the cover of Lawn Boy. I have that one in my house. I play it all the time.
He lost me.
They all get
on Lawn
used.
Boy, I don't
And
know.
then
It's probably a Phish album.
the maple one
Why I
with
haven't
the
heard of
pig
it.
chasing the cat is on the. And the other really interesting thing probably is that it switches between single coil pickups and humbuckers. So humbuckers are a thick
Is he talking
Les
about coil
Paul,
taps?
Jimmy Page
Yes.
sound,
Okay.
and single coil
Which
Jimi
is
Hendrix,
a thing people have heard of.
Eric Clapton. I might use that for chords. And then switch to like. That's a thin sound.
You see how everything he plays sounds like sort of upbeat and jaunty and fucking
Yeah.
fucking jam bands.
I think I like what you don't like about him. I really do like I like him. I like everything about his playing. But I ain't gonna sit there and listen to Phish. I'm not gonna.
All I do is I go through this little pedalboard, which is 2 tube screamers and a compressor.
Why do you need
and
two
the
tube
wah-wah's there, but
screamers?
it's off most of the time.
Wait, can we
So
pause
this
that?
I've been doing since.
Wait, that so much stuff deserves to be talked about. 2 tube screamers.
I don't know. Maybe he has a piece of shit amp or something. Doesn't know how tubes work.
What? All right, we're gonna.
He'll hopefully explain.
Yeah.
I have 1 tube screamer like on full scream, so it's.
I've never heard of the full scream setting on a tube screamer, but
I think it's the Ingve setting.
Yeah,
That's
everything
like the
turned
sustaining
up.
sound. And then I have 1 tube screamer on light distortion. They all get squashed down by this Ross compressor, and then into the amp. And I actually stole that from Mike. He had that in his high school.
Who the fuck is
Blues
Mike?
band
I don't know.
rig.
I don't know who
Like a
Mike
$40
is.
compressor.
nobody's gonna
It
I'm
ask.
actually
assuming
went
he's
away for a
another
while,
Phish.
And when Phish came
I
back,
want to know how old that
some
rug
people
is.
He's another
online
member
And
of the
got
Phish.
together and
does a roadie have to
purchased
set up
me a
that
new one
rug
and sent it
every
to me.
night?
And this one is actually that one.
Yes.
So it's
Wow.
extra special to me for that reason.
So the
Anyway,
rug has its
it
own
goes in
space on
here.
the.
Yeah, I've always felt weird about that.
And
Like,
amp,
do you really?
you come over here.
Is it really worth
I got this
the
amp in
fancy
about
rug on
1985
tour?
or
It's an-
I mean, I guess
86.
if you're a
It's a
drummer, it
Mesa
makes
It's like an
sense.
Mark
outdoor
III,
venue.
Yeah.
Which I believe that being familiar with your gear is more important than having really good gear. So this has sort of a unique sound, all this stuff. So this cabinet, it's a Mesa Boogie Mark III, which today is sort of a much maligned amp. This is exactly the same.
No, it's not.
I haven't maligned. Who's maligned it?
Nobody. I mean, you can't get them, but like, I think it's less popular than like the 2C plus.
In jam band world, it's maligned.
Yeah, well, and like I know Metallica used them on an album, and like it's just the mark in between the 2 and the 4, and I don't think
that would be the 3.
yes, which is what he said. Shut up, Trey. You know what you're talking about.
There's things more maligned,
like Phish, like yo stupid music. No, that explains it now.
Stop.
What he's saying is he thinks that being familiar with the amp that he thinks people don't like is more important than having a good amp. But the thing is, it's not a bad amp. It's a fucking Mesa Mark. And so
if you're familiar with a turd, does it make it better? If you're familiar with a turd, don't just wish you had a better...
Can only polish a turd
something
so much.
So this cabinet was built in my living room by myself and Paul.
Oh, it doesn't
who
look
was my roommate at the time. It was me and Phish and Paul lived together. We
Somebody's
assumed
called
that a 12-inch
Phish?
speaker was 12 inches. So we cut this big hole and then dropped the speakers in, and it fell right through.
There's someone named
so
Phish
we
in
ended
the
up
band
putting another
Phish.
piece of plywood behind it.
Yep.
And it's got this here. I'll show you. This is kind of interesting.
He should probably put down his
house
guitar.
insulation. This cabinet went on the road with Phish all through the 80s and 90s when we used to travel in a car all around the country.
Does it have like an 8-track in it?
On the original old cabinet, as you can see. Well, there's actually 2 other streams. So as the night's going on...
He has another ocelot on like his space filler.
I called it a snow leopard about 3 times, and then he had to correct me and call it an
I just thought it was a
ocelot.
fucking cat. I'm like, he's fucking, he had a little fucking cat on his guitar.
I promise you, my woman has never heard the word ocelot. And I have to act like I've heard it, actually.
Let's see, in case he doesn't fucking talk about any of this shit.
That's a whole lot of Rosie. Ocelot.
Bunch of Alesis units here. Microverb, custom audio electronics, something. Looks like it might be like a switcher, but I don't know.
So that's a lot of rackage from...
Well, there's actually 2 other streams. So as the night's going on, sometimes I use the Leslie speaker, which is right here. So I hit this button, the Leslie comes on, and it's that spinning speaker over there. The 2 speakers are spinning in different directions, the low and the high, and I can speed up or slow down. So this would be fast.
There's a lot of pedals that do that kind of thing.
And that's how you get that water.
There's a lot of...
And just looking at it, just glancing at it, that all seems like just really old shit. I mean, there's like...
Plus, Leslie.
I mean, it's like, I know you want like the vintage vibe and all of that. It's just like, but it just seems like only guitar players love to have a foot firmly planted 50 years ago.
Yeah, and plus, like a Leslie, like unless you're actually stereo miking it to get the back and forth, it just sounds like a tremolo. You just hear the wah, 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 you know. But the back and forth part, like, I mean, he probably has a stereo.
It's like a 150-pound tremolo.
Yeah, exactly.
Boss makes one that big, green, sounds the same.
Plus, there's there's plenty of rotary simulator pedals now.
Somebody help Trey out. Dude, I got 7 different pedals at the store that do that.
I have these 2 chains because most of the time I want the guitar to be as close as possible to just a cable going into an amp.
Why is that
so
like a rap,
clean, really
like a
nice
rap
sound.
name? 2 chains.
I have 2 effects on that chain.
Because
that
it
I
is.
use.
2
One is
chains,
this
right?
little
2 chains, yeah. Here again, there's another Univibe that I can fit in my pocket. And I'm not exactly sure which piece of gear he was pointing to, but it looked whatever. He had the option of about 3 different massive things. And it was like, there's my Univibe, and they were all massive. So whatever he's using for a Univibe is,
I'm sure it's
huge and big and clunky and just just gigantic. And he's got no, like, looking at it now, the shit that he's literally surrounded by in this picture, there's like, there's just, you can put it on a pedal board, like every single thing he's talking about.
Those Alesis nanoverbs and shit are ancient. I actually had one, or I don't know if I had a nanoverb, but I had one of those because it was like the cheapest thing I could get, and I only used it for like for an insert for like reverb for monitoring vocal recording, so that you're recording vocals, you hear reverb, but it doesn't record the reverb. Just so I had that, atmosphere recording vocals, and then
I spent
Stuff now.
8 million hours listening to Band of Gypsies when I was growing up.
It's like a custom audio switcher.
You want to rewind it? I want to see that thing.
And, you know, I got it.
Yeah.
I spent 8 million hours listening to Band of Gypsies.
Here it comes. There we go. All right, what is that thing?
That's his switcher, and it's custom audio.
Ah, custom audio electronics. They make my wah. Bob Bradshaw.
Let's check out part 2. Pedals and electronics.
The guy can play, man. The guy, I enjoy his playing. He is.
I won't argue with that at all. It's just
Homeboy can play, dude.
But what he chooses to do, he chooses to use his powers not for good, but for evil.
I haven't sat around and listened to a Phish album, dude, and I'm not.
I haven't either,
know.
but that's because I can't get through one.
Just because
I can't get through a song. I'm just like, I've tried. It's been a few times. I really was like,
I'm not really afraid of
give it a
offending Phish fans, because the most would be like, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that.
Most of them can't explain why it's supposed to be good anyway. They're just like, man, you know.
When I hit this button,
DJ,
I go
crap?
into La La Land. And all this other stuff is in La La Land. The signal splits to another loop. My friend and guitar tech, Brian Brown, who I want to acknowledge,
Who lugs
helped
around all that
set
shit.
all the stuff up and is a genius and somebody
Who's
who
got a
is
bad
so
back
important
now.
to me. So the first thing would be the looper.
Oh, good. So it's an entirely separate digital rig he switches to.
So you can make a loop while we're playing.
But
you
like,
know?
why do you need a
And you can
loop?
add
Don't you
to
have like
it.
8 guys?
Aren't you in a band?
Yeah, and aren't you in Phish? Like, don't you have like
Aren't you,
a billion
like-
people? Just like, I don't. Can't imagine that's necessary.
You know, you add another layer.
Okay, now he's showing us how to use a loop
You put the little
station.
bass in there.
But I mean, like,
Or you can put the high on there.
yeah, now he's just showing us how to do a loop.
Now what I'm doing is,
You're
this
making a
button
loop.
allows me to stack on top of the loop, right?
So does every loop
This
station.
button stack.
That's how loops
So,
work,
yeah.
And
Trey.
this button gives me vibrato. And you can speed up and slow down the vibrato. So if I go like that, it speeds up.
So he's got a vibrato with the expression pedal? Is that what I'm looking at?
That's kind of cool.
Now this, which also is in DigiCrap, is
Now
a
I gotta say,
longer
that's a pretty
echo.
goofy loop.
So I can go.
He is in Phish, and goofy loops are what they're all about. He can't play anything that doesn't sound like Phish. Like everything he plays sounds like Phish, and I can't get behind that.
Or you can
Oh,
put
he's
a
got a
bass
whammy.
line on, like sort of like.
This sounds like one of those cartoons for 1-year-olds. You know, with like barely any dialogue and just
You hear the
maybe
bass
like
line now.
a line drawing of a person.
Now, if you want, which I do a lot, you can make the whole thing go backwards.
I didn't really want it to go forwards, but
And then you can add forwards to it or backwards. So I can lay forward on top of backwards.
Yeah, it's a looper. It's
he's enjoying his job, man. Yeah,
looper
yeah,
makes
That's
loops.
forward again.
yeah.
Then you can play along with it.
We can play along with a looper. What?
I'd love to swing him by the store. We could make him lose his mind over the looping options of 2018.
Yeah. I think it's an old ass looper too. I think it's like one of the original like boomerangs or something.
How old does it have to be to come in like a metal casing like that?
And then
for the
people will probably recognize
Yeah.
this one, which I do all the time. And then you can hit DigiCrap and it all goes away because all that stuff is over there.
And if you push
I
the
did not
button again
recognize
It's
it
still
at all,
there.
but
Or, this is even better. You can stop it and it's still in the thing. And if you want to hear it once, Brian built this custom pedal for me that goes over here called Once, and I hit it, and the
It's a
loop goes
custom
once.
built. That's like a Boss foot switch with some duct
With
tape
my
on
left
it.
foot.
Yeah.
With some Once duct tape on it.
And he
Custom
specifically built
plugged
it
into the
so I
right
could do
thing
this.
is,
Yeah.
I think, what he means. This
I went-
is possibly the most overly complicated rig I've ever seen, and I've seen some crazy complicated rigs.
Uselessly.
Yeah,
See, then
but I
have to
feel
keep it-
like
it only goes with my foot now, so I go.
So what's he showing us? Tap tempo now?
It was actually specifically built for that song.
Was it a metronome or a cowbell or
For heavy
what's he
things?
got going? Gene, baby. I need more cowbell.
But now that I have it, I do that all night long. I've told you now about
But
every
why?
single effect I have except this,
What-
which is a
was he making a rhythm? I kinda
That
lost
was
it there.
One
Was
of the
it-
first.
he said
Was that
it,
like a-
hit it. It plays it like once,
Right?
but I don't totally get why he was hitting it over and over. Then, if it's supposed to,
It sounds like he was giving himself a rhythm like a cowbell was like.
yeah, I don't know. I
Digital delays ever made.
don't care for this
So I
guy.
bought it. That's it. So a lot of my gear is like really old. I don't get much new
Yeah,
gear.
You
no
think?
shit.
You think?
You know,
No
that's from when I
fucking
was
shit,
in
dude.
High school. You know,
Yo, gear is old as
I
fuck.
had that. I had this from Nectar's, the Alesis Microverb. I don't even know if you can get them anymore. This thing was
Don't
built
think so.
in the 80s. The amps from the 80s. I actually still have the receipt for the amp. It was such a big deal when I got that amp. I remember
Why
same
would you
wah-wah
have the
pedal,
receipt?
tube screamers, but you know, the Leslie's old. So this came out the year they invented it. And you know what happens with this gear is that they fix it.
Yeah, that was the
The
looper he was
second
talking
model
to.
is supposed to be
The
better,
year
and
they
it always
invented
makes
it,
it worse.
and I don't think I
You
think he
know,
took
and
the
so same
label
thing
off,
with this.
but I'm
They
pretty
tried
sure
to
that's
keep
Dude's
the
loose,
metal
loose,
and-
though.
but I'm pretty sure that's one of the first.
Just a little
The
bit.
boomerang was the first looper. It wasn't even called looper; it was a phrase sampler, and it took like I think a few years after that one for like I think then it was Boss, right? And Boss was like, and everyone was like, "Oh, whoa, loopers are a thing," and then everybody followed after that. But that was the original, and it was for a long time. I think it was the only one that could do some of that shit, like reverse everything, stop and start, and all that stuff. But yeah, it's old as fuck.
The second model is supposed to be better, and it always makes it worse. You know, and so same thing with this. They tried to fix the whammy pedal, and
What do you say? All your gear is
He
supposed
said
to make things better.
He
but it
said
makes
the
it worse?
second one's supposed to be better, but it always makes it worse, which is not true. There are much better loopers now. You don't understand how technology works, Trey.
No, he doesn't.
Just like you don't understand
He doesn't-
how music doesn't have to sound all
No.
upbeat and goofy all the fucking
he
time.
just showed us how to make a loop. That shows
Yeah.
like where like.
Wait, because he thinks it was just invented, because he thinks he just bought that,
That-
and he bought the first looper.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's called a looper. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna show you how to use this shit.
yeah. He also showed us what coil taps were too. So he's.
the old ones are so much better than the new ones. Most of the time, I use it like an actual whammy pedal, so I only use it for a half step.
Yeah,
Like,
he also thinks the whammy
An actual
is better than the-
whammy pedal as opposed to what is he talking about?
Well, he's saying it's like the first whammy, which he's insisting is also better than any subsequent whammy, which is definitely not
because that's
true.
usually how things are. Never.
That's what he's saying. He's saying that the first version is always the best, and then the second one always fucks it up.
That's absolutely not true. Not
I'm sure
true.
it's happened, but it's not like a rule. Listen,
Things get better. Things
if you're looking to
improve.
buy guitar gear, do not listen to Trey when he tells you that the second version of any pedal is worse than the first. That's not consistent information.
But even though that does sound like something a salesman would say,
Also
like
so-
even though it's completely wrong, you'd be
also,
tempted to
somebody who only likes gear from the 70s and early 80s would say, because he thinks everything old is better.
say. I think that shirt
like
is
his
from
old
the
dumb
70s or
music.
80s.
That's probably true. This shirt is
Like
the
not-
first one they made.
Wait,
just a little bit.
what's that farty?
You know, like as if it was a whammy pedal.
As if?
He's using like a B bender
Do
or
you
like
sometimes play
a
songs
whammy bar.
pedal-wise?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's definitely no plan on the pedals. As a matter of fact, that's what I meant about why it's so important to get really familiar with your gear. There's a couple of times when I use the same thing.
I wouldn't want to get familiar with your gear.
But no, I don't know. No, you make it up as you go along. As a matter of fact, I got
Wow.
this TC
This is
Electronics
like-
Echo just for a tiny.
Kids, if you don't make it up as you go along.
No, this is like,
All my keyboards from that speaker, and I want it coming from the piano. I don't put anything but vocals in front of me. The keyboard's supposed to sound like it's coming from the keyboard. The bass or the drums, I have my own drum speaker right there so that it sounds like it's coming from over there. and you can turn stuff down. If you start getting sound coming
I got
from
my
every direction, it just
suspicions
turns
that
into a
like
big mess.
they put in like
So the
an
most
8-track
important
of Phish into that his dad's stereo speakers back there, and then they just play that for the crowd, and he's not playing at all.
So he's also now describing his monitoring setup as if in-ear monitors have not been invented. He's like, when you get too much stuff coming, it gets really confused. That's why you get the little speakers you put in your ears.
He's so happy that he's got no idea about any of this stuff.
Fucking Luddite.
He's got no idea.
Get with the times, Trey.
But he's like totally unself-conscious about it.
Yeah, because he's just happy all the time. Like,
thing about my rig is being able to hear Phish, and obviously I can hear the bass because it's.
So basically, you hear the imaging of the
Obviously.
I hear the imaging as a band where it is, and it helps immensely. You really don't want to listen to yourself ever. It's crucially important.
Yeah, he don't know what in-ears are, does he? Is this recent? This is recent, right?
yes. Well, 5 years ago. But
They had in-ears 5 years ago, right? No, I'm
Everybody
not. I'm not
already was
saying
using
right.
in-ears 5 years ago.
I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah. Well, and they were
yeah.
common. Like the thing is, for a long time, you wouldn't see a lot of people. I mean, they're still expensive, but you see more and more people getting into that because, especially also with the technology. Like if you got an Axe Effects,
I remember seeing Dave Matthews 15 years ago with in-ears.
This fucking.
To hear what somebody else is playing, and the theory is that if you just listen, you'll never run out of ideas. There's a million ideas. I don't need to come up with an idea ever.
You need to come up with some new gear, though, man.
Has a musical idea that I can cop off. A lot of times what'll happen.
Also, again, just to be clear, he said to not listen to yourself. Don't take any of Trey's advice. Like, even if you're a fan of Phish, that's fine. Lots of people are fans of Phish, and I'm sure they lead completely normal lives and are not completely confused about how the world works.
And we're watching this because I like Trey Anastasio as a guitar player.
It's important to hear yourself. It's how you make sure you're playing the right shit. Like, yeah, if you're really good, you don't need as much and you can kind of get by. But would you fucking shut up, Trey? This is not. It's not helpful.
It's like if you don't listen to yourself talk, you're gonna make some mistakes.
Yeah.
You're gonna say some things you wish you hadn't said.
Well, and his vocals. Well, that's another reason I can't listen to Phish is his vocals. So it almost makes sense. He doesn't need to. He doesn't do anything difficult vocally, so he doesn't really need. I could see him not needing to monitor that as much. But and it's like he can hear his fucking guitar, right? Like he can hear it through those fucking speakers. I don't think he means he doesn't want to hear his guitar. I think he just means he doesn't want to hear himself sing ever because whatever.
I'll hear one person, I'll be like, well, that's easy to hook up with them because they're playing out. Mike's playing out. So my brain will instantly go, oh, I wonder what Paige is doing. So then I'll go like this. I walk.
Is this during one of the parts of your songs that you didn't write? That's just
like this, just
making shit up?
I can hear the keyboard.
No, because
band.
he's like telling us how he deals with not having in-ear monitors.
But he's also talking about like improvising and stuff.
I'm actually listening a lot to the hi-hat, which is coming out of there. So because I want to be really tight with the drums when Paige is doing the solo.
You know what would make it easier
Get right in on the
to hear all of that? You could almost hear it like it was right in your ear.
Yeah, you can monitor it.
And there's no wires.
You can monitor what's
You can go
going on.
anywhere. Anywhere.
I just have a feeling he would like. I'm sure somebody's tried to explain it to him, and he just completely glazes over. He just not just glazes.
They were like,
over
we're gonna
and-
sit down Trey tonight. And we're gonna explain in-ears to him because I think we need to get with the times. And then as they tried to have the conversation, he was like, "Listen, man, I just dropped a few hits of this serious acid, and what do you want me to put in my ears? I don't.
It's so major. My eye's so major.
But if you're over there, I can hear you. And then if you're over there, it's almost like we're on a stage and we stand in the same place.
I can hear you anyway. What? What's this you're trying to?
Up here, everything works. We have a great crew.
Boom.